Hi, my name is Ben Bois. I'm the Director of Horticultural Operations for Green City Growers, and I'm here to talk to you today about transplanting. I have some Swiss chard bright lights. This is grown for us by Allendale Farm. We're going to be putting it into this double raised bed here, handicap accessible double raised bed. We're at Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare Gateway in Wellesley, and it's mid-April, April 14th. First thing I want to do is make sure that the bed is nice and wet. If it's not wet, when you transplant a plant, no matter how careful you are, you're going to be losing some of the roots. There's these microscopic root hairs on all of the roots, and when they dry out, they die. They're only about a cell in diameter. So some of them are going to be lost anyways, but if the soil is nice and wet, and if the transplants are wet, the damage is going to be minimized, and the plant will be, it won't get as much shock, basically, and we'll be able to start growing a lot faster. So I'm only going to be planting them here in this back row. I'm going to do the same thing with the transplants, just water them down. This actually also makes it easier to pull them out of the cells. You want to make sure that it's a light, gentle mist. You can really damage young plants by watering them too hard. For greens, for things that are not fruiting plants, the spacing of the plant is a little bit more flexible. If I was to plant 6 of these little chard plants per square, then we would get much smaller chard. But I've decided for what we're doing here that we're going to be putting in about 2 per bed. Kitty corners, so spacing them out as much as we can. So it's going to be 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, 1 here. Some of them just have 1 growing, but a lot of them have 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 sometimes little starts in there. But because we have limited space here and we're trying to grow as much as we can in the space that we have, I've actually been pulling them apart and making putting in a maximum of 2 plants per spot. So this single one I can just put in as is. These are young seedlings, so they're not root bound at all. Sometimes when you pull out seedling from a set, it's really root bound. Here, it's still young. It hasn't been in the pot too long, so I don't need to break it apart. But when the roots really start wrapping around the plant, you want to make sure that those roots are broken up, because otherwise they'll keep going in a circle actually and won't go out into the nearby soil. So if these were more root bound, it would be something similar to that, just kind of breaking apart the edges a little bit so that they don't keep going in this circular motion. And you want to try and get the soil level to be a little bit higher than it was, but not by much. And just put the soil in around it, push in gently the sides. Now, one thing that I often do is that I'll pinch off a leaf when I transplant. And this is because no matter how gently you've transplanted it, you're still going to be damaging some of those root hairs. So plants like a big pump. The water that it pulls up from the roots goes out to the leaves. If you have less leaves, then it needs less roots. And since the roots have been trimmed, it makes sense to pinch off a leaf. That way each of the remaining leaves is going to get the amount of water that it needs. The early ones that have already started to lose color, like this is not helping the plant at all. And pinching it off is going to make it easier to recover from the shock of transplanting. So this guy I'm going to gently tease apart because I don't want to plant all 3 of these in one. The roots of chard are actually kind of color-coded. If I hadn't soaked this beforehand, I would be doing a lot more damage than I am. So it's really important that both the starts in the pot are wet and the ground that they're going into.